Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. New York City never sleeps. Between the glittering skyscrapers and the dark streets, the most opposite lives intersect without ever meeting. In a luxurious penthouse overlooking Central Park, Marcus Landon, a billionaire renowned for his colossal fortune and his technology business, is hosting a sumptuous dinner party. Everything is perfect: china, crystal chandeliers, and a menu prepared by the city's finest chefs. His wife, Victoria, beautiful and elegant, smiles at the guests, but behind this perfect facade hides an icy and dangerous ambition. A few floors below, in a cold, damp alley, a homeless boy named Alex struggles to survive. At only 17, he knows the city better than many adults, observing, memorizing, anticipating. That evening, scanning the penthouse lights, Alex notices something strange about Victoria's behavior and her husband's drink. What Alex discovers could save or doom a life, and no one, not even Marcus Landon, suspects that salvation will come from a boy with nothing, except his courage and his instincts. The rain fell lightly on the Manhattan sidewalks, reflecting the neon lights of luxury boutiques and the headlights of taxis. Alex, thin but lively, weaved through puddles and cardboard boxes, looking for scraps of food or shelter for the night. His piercing green eyes observed everything, analyzing every movement of passers-by. That evening, his attention was caught by a bright light at the top of a building, Marcus Landon's penthouse. Behind the large glass windows, elegant figures moved, and Alex could almost smell the aroma of the carefully prepared dinner. He paused, scrutinizing every detail. Marcus, the charismatic billionaire, was laughing with his guests, while Victoria, his wife, wore a polite but calculating smile. It was then that Alex noticed something that made her heart beat faster. The glass Victoria had just placed in front of Marcus seemed abnormal. There was a slight, almost imperceptible coloring and a suspicious sparkle in the light from the candlesticks. Alex knew he had to act. Despite his homeless condition, his instincts were always right. He retreated into the shadows, looking for a safe angle to intervene. The danger was real, but he couldn't remain passive. "Don't just stand there and watch," he muttered to himself. "I have to warn him, before it's too late." And so, with quick, silent steps, Alex prepared to enter Marcus Landon's life, a world of luxury and power where no one suspected that a street boy could have the courage to save a billionaire from a tragic fate. Alex crouched behind a bush on the balcony of an adjacent building, his eyes fixed on the penthouse. The scene before him seemed almost surreal: glittering chandeliers, crystal glasses, and elegant guests laughing and chatting as if the outside world didn't exist. But Alex felt an unease growing in his stomach. He remembered the stories he'd heard on the streets about Victoria Landon. Beautiful, refined, but formidable. Some whispered that she did everything to control her husband, including manipulating those around her. Alex wasn't naive, he knew danger when it presented itself. His gaze fixed on Marcus's glass. That slightly cloudy color, that strange glow. His instincts screamed poison. The boy knew he didn't have the luxury of doubt. Every second counted. But how could he alert Marcus? He couldn't just knock on the door of this penthouse. He had to act with cunning and precision. Alex studied the building's floor plan, identifying balconies, emergency exits, and less guarded areas. "If I get caught, they'll hunt me, or worse," he thought, his heart pounding. "But if I don't do something, he could die." A cold determination seized him. He had to find a way to make himself heard. He took a deep breath, his eyes shining in the night. The courage of a street boy was perhaps all that could prevent a tragedy. As Victoria leaned forward to pour the contents of the glass in front of Marcus, Alex knew the moment had come. He had to intervene. The foreboding he'd been feeling for minutes was turning into certainty. The danger was real, and time was running out. Heart pounding, Alex stepped onto the sidewalk, rain dripping down his hood. He could see Marcus raising his glass, ready to make a toast. The guests laughed, oblivious to the impending danger. "Don't eat that. Your wife put poison in it," Alex shouted at the top of his lungs, his voice echoing through the street. The sound of shattering glass and chatter stopped instantly. All eyes turned toward him. The guests were stunned. A waiter in rags, soaked by the rain, had dared to interrupt a billionaire's dinner. Marcus narrowed his eyes, intrigued but also skeptical. His instincts told him this boy wasn't crazy. He could hear the sincerity in his voice. Victoria, for her part, feigned surprise and anger. "Who are you to speak to my husband like that?" she yelled, her voice cold. But Alex wasn't intimidated. He knew every second counted. "I swear. I saw what your wife did," he insisted. "If you drink that, you could die." The guests began to murmur among themselves, some laughing at the absurdity of the situation. But Marcus felt a shiver of worry run down his spine. The boy's voice carried an urgency he couldn't ignore. Without taking his eyes off Alex, he gestured for Victoria to stay away and leaned in slightly to listen. For the first time, Marcus's luxury and power seemed fragile compared to the intuition of a young street boy. Alex knew he now had to convince Marcus of the gravity of the situation. And to do that, he would have to take the next step, enter the penthouse, where the danger was most real. Marcus Landon stood frozen, his glass suspended in midair. The murmurs of the guests filled the room, but he barely heard them. His gaze remained fixed on Alex, who stood soaking wet and determined on the sidewalk below. Victoria, aware of the tension, approached Marcus with an icy smile. "Don't listen to him. He's just a homeless man looking for attention." But Marcus sensed something strange. The boy's voice, his confidence despite his situation, reminded him of instincts he'd learned in business. Sometimes those who seem most vulnerable see what the powerful don't. Marcus looked at the glass again. The slightly cloudy color, the unusual shine in the candlelight, a doubt began to form in his mind. What if this boy was right? Alex, sensing time was running out, made a gesture to gain more attention. He pointed to the glass, then to Victoria, then to a small, shiny crystal lying on the table. The tension rose a notch. The guests began to whisper, some amused, others intrigued. "Maybe I should check before I drink," Marcus muttered to himself, hesitant. Victoria raised an eyebrow, surprised by her husband's sudden uncertainty. For the first time, she felt her plan might fail. Marcus took a deep breath and gestured for Victoria to back away. "Sit down, everyone," he said calmly. "And you," he added, looking at Alex, "come here. I want to hear what you have to say." The boy was trembling slightly, but a glimmer of triumph crossed his eyes. He had just overcome the first obstacle. Marcus, the billionaire, was going to listen to him. Alex took a deep breath and, with a quick movement, climbed onto a small adjacent balcony. His hands were shaking from the cold and adrenaline, but his determination was intact. Within moments, he found himself on the penthouse balcony, right next to the open bay window. Marcus watched in amazement as the boy entered the room as if he belonged in this world of luxury. The guests froze, some murmuring surprised remarks, others shocked by Alex's audacity. Victoria, pale, felt panic rise in her for the first time. What are you doing here?" she exclaimed, her voice trembling. Alex, with a frank look, turned to Marcus. "I saw what your wife did. She put something in your drink. You have to be careful." Marcus stared at him intently. Every word the boy spoke resonated with urgency and sincerity. He could sense the fear of the street and the alertness of someone who had survived 1,000 dangers. "Show me," Marcus said calmly, but authoritatively. "Explain exactly what you saw." Alex walked over to the table, discreetly pointing at the dessert Victoria had prepared and the suspicious-looking little crystal on top. He recounted how he'd watched Victoria pour a strange ingredient into the dish while Marcus wasn't looking. The guests held their breath. Victoria tried to smile, to divert attention, but Marcus didn't blink. He knew he had to protect his life and understand the truth before it was too late. "Thank you," Marcus murmured, turning to Alex. "You were brave to come all this way. We'll check it out right away." Alex felt a wave of relief. He had cleared the biggest hurdle. he had managed to get Marcus's attention and sow seeds of doubt in Victoria's mind. But he knew the hardest part was yet to come, proving the danger was real. Alex stood by the table, still breathless from the adrenaline rush. Marcus watched him intently, weighing every word. The guests, silent, watched the scene as if it were a spectacle they had never imagined they would experience. "Tell me exactly what you saw," Marcus ordered in a firm but calm voice. Alex recounted everything in detail, how Victoria had taken a small vial hidden in her pocket, poured it into Marcus's glass, and pretended to pour normal wine. He explained that he had noticed the slightly different color and that unusual little crystal that had accidentally fallen onto the dessert. Victoria paled, realizing her plan could be compromised. "You're lying," she cried, trying to regain control. Marcus, however, didn't let her interrupt him. He leaned over to the glass and looked closely. He saw what Alex had described: the crystal, almost invisible at first glance, reflected the light in a strange way. His instincts told him the boy was right. "You were very brave to come and warn me," Marcus said to Alex, his eyes sincere. "You saved my life." Alex felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he was no longer an invisible boy on the streets. He was someone whose courage and observation had a real impact on another's life. Victoria, for her part, realized that the mask of control she had worn for years was beginning to slip. Marcus would not be fooled, and Alex had just proven that even the most vulnerable can see the truth that the powerful ignore. "Security," Marcus ordered, his voice echoing through the penthouse. "Check this dessert and make sure no one is in danger." Alex remained silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on Victoria, sensing that the worst was about to happen to her. The confrontation between the courage of a street boy and the perfidy of an ambitious woman had just begun. Security quickly entered the penthouse, examining the dessert and the suspicious glass. Marcus, standing beside Alex, watched every move carefully. The guests were silent, holding their breath. One of the security guards lifted the small crystal that had fallen onto the table. He examined it under the light, and his face froze. "It's not sugar, it's a very concentrated poison," he declared. Victoria, who had been trying to remain calm until now, felt her legs buckle. Her smile faded, replaced by a mask of panic. "It's not what you think," she stammered, but no one believed her. Marcus stared at Alex with a mixture of astonishment and respect. "You were right," he said slowly. "If you hadn't shouted, I might not be here anymore." Alex felt a strange sense of pride fill him. All his instincts and courage had paid off. For a moment, he was no longer the homeless boy invisible to the world. He was the one who had saved a billionaire from certain death. The security guards isolated Victoria and called the police. His attempts at justification fell on deaf ears. Marcus knew the truth was now irrefutable: Alex had saved his life, and Victoria had just been caught in the act. The guests, still reeling from the turn of events, realized that the world they knew could change in an instant. And in the midst of it all, a young, wet, and tired street boy had done what no one else would have dared, told the truth and faced danger. "Alex," Marcus said, approaching, "you deserve more than thanks. Come with me, there's something I want to show you." Alex felt his heart beat faster. What he didn't know yet was that this night would change his life forever. Victoria was escorted to a corner of the penthouse by security, but her eyes flashed with defiance. She tried to keep her arrogance intact, but Marcus was no longer the man blinded by wealth and blind love. "Enough," Marcus thundered, his voice echoing through the great hall. "I've heard enough. You've put people's lives in danger, and I can't tolerate that." Victoria tries to protest. "Marcus, it wasn't what you think." "Enough," he repeated, more coldly this time. "Apologies are not enough to betray trust and put a life in danger." Alex, still standing next to Marcus, felt an electric tension in the air. He had witnessed the scene and knew that Victoria had underestimated the courage of a street boy. Marcus turned to him. "You showed incredible courage tonight. Without you, I might not still be here." The police arrived shortly after, taking Victoria in for formal questioning. Her mask of control had been shattered. She was powerless in the face of the truth Alex had revealed. Marcus turned to the boy. "Come on, sit down. You must be freezing and starving." Alex sat down, still trembling from the adrenaline and cold, but relief was evident on his face. For the first time in a long time, he felt safe, recognized, and respected. "What you did tonight, Alex, is more than courage. It's life. You've proven that honesty and bravery are not dependent on wealth or status." Alex looked down, a small smile on his lips. That night had changed something in him. He was no longer invisible. He had shown that even a homeless boy could influence the destiny of the most powerful. Victoria had been taken away by the police, her protests and threats falling on deaf ears. Marcus, still in shock from what had just happened, turned to Alex, who was sitting next to him, his clothes soaked and his body numb from the cold. "Alex, you risked your life for me tonight," Marcus said, his voice sincere. "You deserve more than just a thank you." The billionaire summoned his security chief and a few trusted aides. He ordered them to prepare a hot meal for Alex and find him a place to warm up and sleep that night. But Marcus didn't want to stop there. He knew this smart, brave boy needed a real chance to turn his life around. "You have instinct, intelligence, and courage. If you want, I can help you get a real home, an education, and a better future," Marcus continued. Alex, his eyes shining, didn't know what to say. He never imagined a billionaire could offer him something so unimaginable. The boy who spent his days surviving on the streets was finally going to have a chance to turn his life around. Meanwhile, Victoria faced the consequences of her actions. Her arrest and the upcoming investigation would reveal the gravity of her actions and the treachery of her plan. She realized that her attempt at control and betrayal had failed, and that her life of luxury would not protect her from justice. Marcus looked at Alex, a warm smile on his face. "Tonight, you have shown that courage and truth are more powerful than wealth or deception. You have saved a life. From now on, I will make sure you have your own to protect and build." Alex felt a mixture of pride and wonder. For the first time, he was no longer looking at the world from the street, but saw a future where he could truly exist and be recognized for who he was, a brave, intelligent boy capable of making a difference. The next morning, Alex woke up in a warm and comfortable room in Marcus's penthouse. For the first time in years, he didn't have to worry about the cold, rain, or hunger. Every detail of the room spoke to the luxury and care Marcus had taken to provide him with a safe environment. Marcus entered with a warm smile. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. "Today we begin to transform your life." Alex nodded, still a little incredulous. He had never imagined his life could change so quickly. Marcus told him about the schools, mentors, and opportunities he would provide. Alex understood that this wasn't just about security or comfort, it was a real chance to build a future. Meanwhile, the police continued their investigation into Victoria. Her actions had been exposed, the poison, the suspicious crystal, and the attempt to manipulate her husband. Justice was taking its course, and Marcus ensured that the law was upheld. Victoria, for the first time, felt the weight of her choices. Alex, sitting next to Marcus, realized something important: courage and insight can change the destiny of even a billionaire, and that a person's worth is not measured by their wealth, but by their heart and determination. "Thank you, Marcus," Alex said softly. "For everything. For believing me, for giving me a chance." "No, Alex," Marcus replied, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Thank you. Without your courage, I might not be here. You saved a life, and you deserve to live yours to the fullest." And so, a homeless boy became a young man with a future. His life, once marked by fear and survival, transformed into a story of courage, gratitude, and hope. Alex knew that every day would be a step toward a future he had never dared to imagine, but now, nothing was impossible.